So, Kyra, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and joining us out here. Kyra is the CEO of YR Media, which is an award-winning national nonprofit serving youth storytellers. She's served in many roles in media, and I know that the last week has been really frantic because she's been expanding to Chicago, so congratulations on that. She was the editor-in-chief of Ebony Magazine and senior vice president, head of digital editorial, and at a sister publication called Jet. She launched the brand's first ever app. I'm going to let Kyra talk a little bit about her background herself because she has a story to tell, and I think it is best that you hear it from her. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So nice to be here. Can everybody hear me? Because I've got a big mouth, so I think you can. Okay. And I was not going to go get a Danish. It was a joke. You know, I was just trying to see how nervous I could make Asha right before. I was like, I think I'm going to go shopping for a couple hours. But no, I would love to be here with you, and I'm so excited and honored for this opportunity. And I would like to refine it. I wouldn't call this a keynote. I would call it a thought-provoking start of a conversation. So can we agree to that? Okay. All right. So the next slide, please. So Asha did a great job of talking about my experience, so I won't linger on this slide too long. I am really excited to be here. I'm from Chicago originally, so I'm loving this weather. It is an improvement. I can admit that. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And then just a little bit more about YR Media. We can go to the next slide too. So YR Media has been around about 30 years, and we're celebrating our 30th year anniversary, as a matter of fact, right now. Thank you. And to just give you a little more detail about what we do, so YR Media serves 14 to 24-year-olds, mostly BIPOC young people in underrepresented communities. So we started out in Oakland, started actually in Berkeley in a storefront. Moved to Oakland. We're about 7 blocks up on 17th and Broadway, so please do come visit. You are most welcome. And we really teach young people not only media, music, technology, but we teach them that they are valued. The majority of our young people are women or female identifying. We teach them with paid stipends. Did you hear what I said? It's paid. We pay them, okay? And then once they take those learning stipends and they go through 6 months of training, then we offer them paid jobs within our organization. There's a theme there. And the reason we do that is because we know that young people, one, are underrepresented in media, music, and technology, and also taught that exposure is money. And I don't know if any of y'all have ever tried to cash an exposure check. It doesn't work. You can't send it through Venmo or Cash App. It doesn't work. So that is a really important mission for me because I started my career in TV, come to become an executive in media, and what saddens me though is that sometimes when I'm talking to the young people at YR Media, a lot of the things I've gone through and in leadership, they're going through it now. And so I'm thinking, shouldn't this have been fixed or at least much better, by this point? And so today, what I want to explore with you is thinking about people sometimes roll their eyes. I think Asha mentioned about intersectionality, but it's really important. Someone, Asha actually, asked me the question, which really drove home like what I wanted to talk with you about today was, is there a way to separate yourself out as I'm a woman leader? I think of myself as a Black woman leader, and I think that because that's what people think of me. The perception of others, though it shouldn't govern what you do, it is a big part of that. And there are definitely differences. Like women in general, as was pointed out earlier, face unique challenges as it comes to leadership. And, BIPOC women face special challenges. Women in different groups face different challenges. And I think it's important to own up to that because I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to make a change. So, because I cannot remember numbers, that's why I have these slides. Because, I'm not a slides person. I'm going to just let y'all know a little something about me. But I think it's important to note, we talked about the percentage of CEOs that are women, and it's 13. You can see some of the numbers up here showing, the differences between men and women in management. We start out at a pretty even or even maybe at a little bit of an advantage in terms of women, but then all of a sudden that starts to shrink. And I do think we need to probe why, but we also have to think about if that's a situation for women leaders, think about what the situation is for women leaders of color who, as I've described it sometimes, are double othered in the workplace. All right, so we'll slide to the next one. And this, I think, is really clear and actually rather sad. you can see some of these statistics, so I won't read all of them, but you can see, so you start with that first graph, which shows entry level, and this is everybody. You know, it's white women, women of color, men of color, white men. Now, we see who ends up in these leadership positions in this graph. I don't even have to really explain it. You can see that, you know, women of color, that number of entry, that 17% just shrinks all the way down as you get to the far right. When you're getting to the C-suite, you're getting to the area of leadership. And I do think it's important to say that leadership can come in different forms. You don't have to be the CEO of something or the executive director or a top manager. You know, there are many individual contributors that play a big role, but we all understand that sometimes leaders can set that tone. And so if you don't see anyone, if you don't see a woman, you don't see a woman of color in that leadership position, it does set a tone for the rest of the organization. Next slide, please. And so I'm a media person. Of course, I want to bring my receipts. So just wanted to highlight a few of the news stories that have been written about the challenges of women in leadership. Most recently, I think many of you have seen stories about women leaders stepping down, even from the Prime Minister of New Zealand, because the challenges are just there. And I actually had the honor of participating in an article about the glass cliff. Now, this was specifically written about black women. And I have to tell you, unfortunately, I have experienced this. So can I see a show of hands who knows what the glass cliff is? See, I knew who would know what it was. Okay, so the glass cliff is essentially a black woman that is put into a position of leadership, usually during a period of challenge, and they're expected to fix everything like this. And if they can't do that, then what that does is it pushes them not only off the glass cliff, but it makes it so that no one else that looks like them will get an opportunity. And I hate to say that I've been in that position a couple of times. I didn't get pushed off the cliff because I'm not pushable, but you know, I did experience a situation where I'm thinking, wow, why did I get this role right now? Why couldn't I have had it before? And why is the expectation for me to fix something really fast? What's the speed factor on it? When I look at Elon Musk, you know, not to pick on anyone in particular, but when he said, hey, I need some time to do some dumb things and make mistakes, I tried my hardest to pretend like I was going to say that to somebody, and then I said, I'm not even going to fake say that, because if I ever said anything like that, I wouldn't be standing up here to talk to you today. I would not be a woman leader of any sort. So that story about the black girl magic that we're expected to bring is real. I've experienced it, and I just wanted to highlight that. Next slide. Another one, you know, when you are in that leadership position, you feel like you are really heavily scrutinized. You can't raise your voice. You can't cry. You can't do all these things that when you look on LinkedIn, because you know we all do, you see people talking about, yes, I did this and my team understood. No, I know very well that I cannot do that. I remember a key situation. We were having a meeting at an organization that I was with, and we were talking about George Floyd. One of my colleagues, who's a white woman, just burst into tears in this meeting. And I'm just, you know, I have empathy, and definitely, you know, I care about George Floyd. George Floyd looks like my uncle. He looks like he could be my brother. So, but I don't have the privilege of bursting into tears. I have to work. I have to make things happen, or else people question my ability to lead. And I think that people really just don't think about that sometimes. Sometimes we think of ourselves like, well, we're all women leaders. And we are, to a point. So you know, we all have our own separate challenges. You know, AAPI, different challenges for different people. And not to generalize, but I think it's important for us to note that, because if we create this false narrative that everybody's in the same boat, that's the reason why we're still in this boat. Okay, next slide. And so I think it's also this perception that once you make it, that the challenge is done. And the exceptionalism narrative. Well, this person fought through the mud and made it. Well, why do we have to fight through the mud is an excellent question. I would love to relax. You know, I know for a fact that that is not something that people expect me to say, but think about how many white male leaders are often put in a position, not to say that they don't experience challenges, but they're given a chance, they're given an opportunity, and if they fail, that doesn't mean that another white man will not be hired for the next decade or so. That's just a reality. Next slide. And so, as I said, I'd like to make this the start of a conversation. We could go to the next slide. And just to give you a few examples, you know, I told you lived experience I think is extremely important. A lot of times people want you to speak in generalities, and I'm going to tell you specifically just a few things that I've experienced, and I'm going to share them because I think What's sad is that other people are still experiencing them. And I won't dwell on them because I don't want us to get down in the muck. Like, the idea is we recognize the situation and we're better able to react to the situation and find solutions. So one of the experiences that I had a long time ago when I was starting out in reporting, I was working in the newsroom, doing my thing. I was lucky because the newsroom I worked in was very diverse, gender, race, everything. We were super excited about it, and there was another side of the company, and it was really white, male, very homogenous, very typical of the newspaper experience. So the two sides never really met. I was at the Tribune Red Eye, and the Tribune Blue side was the side that was more typical of your average American newsroom. And one day, the blue side called me over. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, usually the only reason you're called over to the blue side is if you made a mistake and they want to let you meet with the public editor to figure out how to explain yourself. So I was like, what did I do? I'm going through all my stories. I checked that. I know this is right. They called me over there, and I could not believe it. I was in this room, and I swear it looked like a scene in a movie or something directed by Quentin Tarantino. They're like, so, yeah. We've been grappling with this, and we thought we would ask you this question because we don't know how to handle this coverage of Hurricane Katrina. There are so many victims in this situation that are Black, and we just want to know if you think they should be called refugees or if you think they should be called victims. And I was like, wow, okay. So y'all called me over here, one singular human, and I was so shocked that I actually did say this, you guys. Like, I shouldn't have, but I did. I was like, you called me over here in what context? We just want to get the opinion of a Black person. I was like, I am not from the South. I am not from New Orleans. And they were like, yeah, we understand, but we just don't want to offend anyone. I said, well, here's something for you. One thing is, I am not in a position to give you an answer on behalf of Blackness, and there is nobody that can do that. So let's just start there. Secondly, let's ask you this. If this was about a twister in Iowa, what would you say? And they were like, oh, victims, like, there you go. And I just got up and left. And I thought, my career might be over, okay? I was a little smart-mouthed with them because I did not know where this was coming from. That's just one story. Well, that's one. Another one was when I was at that paper, and there's no offense in it. People serve different roles, but I was a columnist. I wrote for the newspaper. I did all this reporting. There was not one time where someone would come in and deliver a package and they didn't come to me with it to sign for it because they assumed that I was the administrative assistant of the publisher. And I moved my desk just to see if it was where I was sitting. They kept coming. I was like, hey, go back over here. So this is just, people call them microaggressions, but I don't think that's micro. I think that is huge. That is really what you were saying is, even though you're in this newsroom, you're a part of it, your byline is here, hey, we need somebody to sign for this package. You look like the most likely person that would be doing that. And that's very sad, but it is very true. My favorite, though, this might be one of my favorites, y'all. I'm going to tell this to y'all because I like you. Okay. I was interviewing for a role as a VP of communications at a bank. And as part of the interview process, I had to do a big presentation, slides and all this. And I thought that was a little strange because I didn't think anyone else had to do this. At one point, the person that was hiring asked me if my father graduated from college. Oh, no. And I was like, I said, is my father interviewing for a job here? I said, I hope not, because unfortunately my father passed away like 10 years ago. So if my dad came here, we should all run. And he just laughed. But it's like that, it was in no way funny because I did end up getting this role. And I asked my colleagues if they had ever been asked anything like that. And what do you all think the answer was? Right, exactly. So ridiculous. And then the last one, and this is, I shouldn't have said that was my favorite. This is actually my favorite. I was a director at a public relations firm, which I will not name because it's, I was the director of public relations, and we had a process where if you referred people, you would be compensated. And I wasn't even trying to do this because I'm the director. Me referring people, I'm not trying to line my own pockets. There's a Black woman that was interviewing for a role. Now, mind you, this woman looked nothing like me. I'm not insulting her. She was cute, but she didn't look like me. So we come in, do the interview, and then the head of the agency comes up to me and says, excuse me, I just have a quick question for you. Is she related to you? I was like, is who related to me? He thought that I'm trying to get my cousins hired And I asked him, I said, have you ever asked anyone else that? Most of the people here look about the same. We've got the blondes and we've got the brunettes. Have you ever asked anybody else that? He said, no. And I said, then do not ever ask me that. And again, thought they might throw me out of here, but they didn't. So the bottom line is, this is not fables. This is not people making things up. These are things that actually happen to real people that you know in the world today, not our ancestors, but to me. You know what I mean? So the next slide, please. So yeah, what can we do about this? Because it's one thing to kind of trade stories and anecdotes, and it's another thing to talk about like what can actually be done. So unfortunately, I feel like a lot of the weight is put on the people that are challenged. So I don't want to do that today. Here's what you can do to stop people from treating you like this. There really isn't that much that you could do to stop people, but there's strength in numbers. I love this room right now because even just being in here for the little bit of time, I'm hearing people talk about, I introduced her to her, and she's now doing this, and I'm a mentor, I'm a mentee, I'm doing this. This is what you have to do if you want to disrupt it. We cannot fix it because we're not the ones that built it. Like, this is a system that we are in, and quite frankly, the system itself needs to be destroyed. But until it is, the things that we can do are the following. Like, don't be apologetic. I was rude, as I think you might have been able to tell from some of my anecdotes. But I think they realized that they could have been in a lawsuit for some of the things that they did. So I think sometimes we have to have that courage to speak up. You don't have to be as nasty as I was, but in your own way, push back against these types of things. If people say to you, hey, why are you referring people? They seem like people that you know. Isn't that what everyone does? That's called networking, correct? So I'm bringing you my network. You need it. It actually does pay to be more diverse. You're welcome. That's what you could say when people say something like that to you, because there's been statistical evidence that people sometimes undercut a referral from a person of color. But please don't let that stop you, because that's how we end up in this position today. And I would just say, again, reiterating not only the business, but the moral issue. If you don't have a boardroom, a workplace, a workspace that looks like America, you are doing yourself a disservice. Like, we're in a global situation in actuality. So you can build a business case, but there's also a moral case to it. So never be apologetic about it. Be strong in your convictions, but also don't take ownership of this situation, because we did not cause it. We can be part of the solution, but we are not the cause. And just work together. This right here is the start of how we dismantle this. And so I am always helping people. Yesterday I was talking to another CEO. We were trying to help each other figure out problems and challenges. Here, I know someone. Here's a resource you can use. Be generous, because one thing I think, and this is my closing, one of the things I think that this system has done is it creates this unicorn kind of conundrum where you feel like, well, I made it here and I'm the only one, so I can't make waves. You will be miserable. You don't want to get in a room like that and be the only person there. You will be so sad. I've been in that room. It is a miserable room. So, always make space at the table. And then if they will not let you make space at the table, as we all know, build your own. So I would love to, next slide, continue the conversation. So you've got my info, link into me. I've got business cards. I know it feels so throwback. I've got business cards, social media, that's my handle. But I would love to keep talking about this and problem solving with you. And thank you so much for your time and your attention.